One of Western Australia's most majestic heritage buildings was formerly the Government Astronomer's residence and offices. It was central to the operations of the original Perth Observatory. The Old Observatory, as we call it today, is located at the summit of Mt Eliza and currently serves as the central office of the National Trust of Western Australia. It is surrounded by Dumas House, Hale House and Parliament House. Rarely open to the public, this film will provide a unique view inside this historic building and uncover some of its hidden stories. But first, let's take a look at how this magnificent building came to be and the significant role it played in Western Australia's development. After decades of difficulties and modest population growth, the Swan River colony finally enjoyed a period of prosperity at the very end of the 1800s with the gold rush. As such, Western Australia's first Premier, Sir John Forrest, was committed to ensuring Perth was provided with all the modern amenities of the age, such as accurate timekeeping and a scientific understanding of the heavens. As a former Surveyor General and explorer, he would also have known that the accurate mapping of the state was dependent upon astronomical observations. Sir John Forrest said, "In the time of our prosperity, we were trying to elevate and improve the public mind and do something for the encouragement of the arts and sciences in this colony." So in 1895, Premier Forrest invited the South Australian Government Astronomer, Sir Charles Todd, to Perth to help choose a suitable location for Western Australia's own observatory. The site they settled on was a protected ridge at the top of Mt Eliza, overlooking Perth to the east and Kings Park, then known as Perth Park, to the south. Before colonisation, this area was known by many names, Katamore or Katagarup, and was a significant place to the Whadjuk Noongar people. Its elevation made this area a good camping and vantage point, and a perfect place to observe the stars. It could be said the site had been an outdoor observatory already for thousands of years. William Ernest Cook was chosen as Western Australia's first governor astronomer and meteorologist, recommended for the role by his boss, the South Australian Government Astronomer, who had advised Forrest in establishing the observatory. Cook was indeed a brilliant scholar and academic, and relocated to Perth from Adelaide with his wife Jessie and 4 surviving children in 1896. He assisted in finalising the designs for the site with the chief government architect George Temple Poole, who was responsible for designing some of the other buildings now managed by the National Trust, including the York Courthouse complex, Stirling House in North Fremantle, and the pump stations built as part of the Goldfields water supply scheme. Originally, there were 3 main structures built: the Government Astronomer's Office and Residence, now called the Old Observatory, the Transit Circle building to house the Meridian Telescope, and the Dome building, which opened up to the night sky and housed the Equatorial Telescope. Meteorological devices and a seismograph were also fitted and housed on the site, with an official weather station situated just outside the office and residence. Prior to Cook's arrival in Western Australia, the colony's understanding of local weather patterns and the ability to make forecasts was very limited. Cook established 33 weather stations throughout the state and kept detailed records and observations. Only 2 years later, Cook was able to make accurate daily forecasts, which were published in post offices and wired to regional areas. Another key function performed at the observatory was the standardisation of surveying. It wasn't until 1899, some 60 years after the first ships arrived at the colony, that Cook was able to determine the exact longitude and latitude of the observatory, officially putting Perth on the map. However, perhaps the most impressive structure on site, and which still stands today, was the official office and residence of the Government Astronomer. The significance and scale of the building's design highlights the importance of the Government Astronomer and the work that was conducted there. The £7,000 investment required to commission and build the impressive and stately residence was a testament to the importance of science and learning to the development of Perth as a modern city. The celebratory event to lay the foundation stone was attended by the who's who of Perth at the time, and certainly would have been one of the highlights of the decade. While some of the state's most important scientific works were being conducted on site, the building was also a family home. Sometimes, when important visitors came to the state, they were accommodated in the building with a family. William Cook and his wife Jessie had their 6th child while living here, which would have no doubt ensured a busy and bustling household.
So the eldest daughter was Violet Ogden, The second child was Lionel Ernest, Frank Basil, and then Erica Carrington, and the one born in this residence, his name was Maxwell Greyer. So you had 5 children growing up here. The environment and the people would have been very stimulating, very enriching childhoods. There was a tennis court here, and I'm not sure if the children, their tennis matches were interrupted when the 1 o'clock jump went, when the gun was fired, but tennis court, and they would have had horses, and then also they had a garden, not only flower beds, but they actually had a kitchen garden. They lived a very privileged existence. At the same time, it was very grounded because their father was very hard-working, and I think that they would have been expected to pay attention to their education too.
While the observatory made many notable contributions to the field of astronomy, it also provided public lectures and open days to allow Perth residents the opportunity to view the moon and other celestial events. The observatory was also home to some of Australia's first computers.
Initially, young men would assist the astronomer to read the plates. However, it became obvious that this was both time-consuming and expensive. Therefore, a cheaper alternative was to employ women. One young woman would read the coordinates using the micrometer, and another young woman would write down the readings. It was an exacting job. It required an ability to concentrate, a willingness to do repetitive work precisely, and an aptitude for meticulous mathematical calculations. Young women chosen generally met this criteria, and they were much cheaper to employ than men. They were known as computers. A wage rise and improved conditions, including permanency, was always a bone of contention. The 11 women from 1907 to 1922 read 944 plates, 228,000 stars. Whilst little is known of the 11 women employed as computers, their work contributed significantly to mapping the sky, and their legacy lives on.
In 1912, Cook left Western Australia to take up an appointment with the Sydney Observatory. The vacancy he left was not filled until 1920, when Harold Burnham Kerr-Lewis was promoted to Government Astronomer. From 1920, the building no longer served as a residence and was transitioned to government offices, continuing work focused on meteorological, seismographic and astronomical functions. However, we're lucky that this beautiful building is still here at all. In 1955, the Stevenson-Hepburn report identified the observatory site as a place where all state government offices could be located, close to Parliament House. In 1961, a National Architectural Design Challenge was put out. The winning design proposed 5 towers and the clearing of all existing structures. The once small and struggling colony had experienced such rapid growth and expansion, it now produced so much light and urban pollution that an inner-city observatory was no longer viable. This growth was illustrated perfectly in 1962, when America's first astronaut to orbit the Earth in the Friendship spacecraft passed over the city, clearly visible below, and famously declared Perth the City of Light. A new site in Bickley, 30 kilometres east of Perth, was chosen to be the Perth Observatory's new home, and in 1963 the construction of Dumas House began. The Commonwealth Bureau of Meteorology moved its operations to Wellington Street, East Perth, and seismographic recording was taken over by the Commonwealth Geophysical Observatory at Mundaring. The dome and telescope were dismantled in 1963 when the building was demolished and was subsequently re-erected at the observatory at Bickley, which opened in 1966. The grand vision for a centralised government site on Mt Eliza was never fully realised. We can see evidence of the growing recognition of the importance of heritage in the 1959 establishment of the National Trust of Western Australia and the public outcry of the demolition of the nearby barracks in 1966. We are fortunate this incredible building was spared the bulldozers. Only Dumas House remains as a reminder of what might have been. Once the Bureau of Meteorology moved its operations out, it was used as offices for the Public Works Department until 1984, when it was then vested in the National Trust of Western Australia for use as its headquarters.
The National Trust moved into this building in 1986, and we've been fortunate to be here ever since, looking to awaken the Western Australian community to the value of heritage. Our members enable the National Trust to do so many things. Their support, their advocacy, and their belief in our cause is immeasurably beneficial to the National Trust, to bring people to a greater understanding of why heritage is important, not only for this generation, but also for the next.
Recently conserved thanks to a grant from Lotterywest, this stunning building with its ornate details, grand staircase and triumphant tower continues to serve the people of Western Australia. As its central office, the Old Observatory helps the National Trust promote the value of heritage through conservation, education and interpretation, and brings together the storylines that bind generations.